All right, here we go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining on time. Let's start. So this unit is about identity, self-concept, self-esteem, peer group, relationships, etc. And as per IGNOU standard that it looks like, most of the text in it is kind of confusing. You will see repeated sentences all over the place and grammatical conundrums in almost every sentence. But we'll try to get through this as soon as we can. I'll skip over the introduction, but the content of the introduction is mostly repeated in most of the parts that are coming up. So don't feel about anything bad about skipping it over.
That is why, I simplify it and put it in presentation. So much more easier to understand.
Yeah. So objectives. After going through this unit, you'll be able to do all this. Define and describe identity and identity crisis in adolescence. Explain Marcia's identity crisis. This person, I thought it's a lady, but it's a gentleman, Marcia, and he proposed a certain theory about identity crisis, which will probably be asked in our question sheets. Looks like a good frame for a question. Analysis of social development and egocentrism in adolescence, and explain self-concept and self-esteem during adolescence. Identity in adolescence 3.2. Now this is a huge one, and again the content of this is repeated, but the context is very simple. How the identity is developed in adolescence from a kid, when from very little, when you become, let's say, in your teenagers, how do you develop your self-concept about yourself, and how the patterns of your thinking process about yourself changes. So I will skim through each of these sentences, each of these paragraphs, and give you the context of it. Most of it in this crowd should be able to relate. So anyone who wants to stop or want to discuss something, that's absolutely welcome. Please do that. So adolescence is known as a period of exploratory self-analysis and self-evaluation. Important, it will come again repeatedly. That exploration of self is kind of positive and negative. In some sense, if you don't explore, you just take one route and you just shut down things on yourself. It's called a foreclosure, where you don't explore possibilities that you might have in future. For example, very common in Indian concept probably is that parents always say you have to become a doctor or an engineer, and that's it. Your entire life course is set. That kind of a thing is called a foreclosure, and which doesn't have any opening for an exploratory self-analysis at all. So these things are very important concepts. And self-evaluation, ideally culminating in establishment of cohesive and integrative sense of self or identity. This process involves the exploration and testing of alternative ideas, beliefs, and behaviors, marking this period as one of both dramatic change and uncertainty. In every phase of growth of a child, you will see it's very dramatic and very fast changing and all that. This one again is probably socially dramatic. Erik Erikson guy, again very famous throughout our economic material. He provided a very widely recognized theoretical framework for conceptualizing the transformation of self during adolescence. This framework provides the development of a sense of one's individuality and continuity with significant others. Now, this one is important. A sense of individuality, that's you are unique in some sense compared to others, and you are continuous. So you identify yourself as a continuous block, or you develop a sense that you have continuity in time, and then you some way map it with a continuous world around you. So you kind of develop your viewpoints about the world, you develop your viewpoints about yourself, and you kind of map them together, and that's how you create an identity. According to Erik Erikson, in this model of development, identity must be perceived by the individual, but also recognized and confirmed by others. This process of establishing this identity involves integrating into a coherent whole one's past experiences, ongoing personal changes, and society's demands and expectations for one's future. This future is also important because it starts from the past experience and ongoing personal changes. So past, you have so much experience in your hand at this point. You are probably taking a course, you are having this many friend circle, this is the kind of relationship you have with your family, etc. And then you project certain future view, and you consider that there's a continuity in all this, the past, the current, and the future of versions of you. And you are trying to integrate that into your idea of the world. Now the process starts with the infant's discovery of the self, continues throughout the childhood, and becomes focus of adolescence. Erik Erikson identified the goal of adolescence as achieving a coherent identity and avoiding identity confusion. Identity is a multi-dimensional and may include physical and sexual identity, occupational goals, vocational goals, religious beliefs, and ethnic background. Adolescents explore these dimensions and usually make commitments to aspects of their identity as they move into early adulthood. Now, in the early stages, when a child grows, if you ask him about, tell me something about you, he'll be like, he'll be just starting with the words me, I, etc. in the when he's very, very small. But later, he will start describing himself with his physical features, such as I have brown eyes, I can do this, I can do that. And when he's a little more grown or she's a little more grown, then feelings take over. So initially it was just a starting of I, mine, etc. Then my physical features and my emotional structures, like I love flowers, I love my dog, etc., etc., or their capabilities, or things like I'm the best fielder in the game, etc., etc. This kind of attribution. So basically, the way they perceive themselves is slowly and progressively changing. That's how the identity is shaped up. Now, this is a very interesting piece. At some point of time, when they're very closer to adulthood, they want to drastically get separated from the parents. That identity where they are in the parentage and that kind of identity, they want to get rid of that somehow. So at this point, it's like this is a very catchy sentence. Mom, please drop me off block from the school. So I want to walk the rest of the way. The kid doesn't really want to be seen with the parent. This is very painful for a mother or father. But this is a very, let's say, expected and a common way things turn around when kids are reaching closer to adulthood. So they are finding their own identity. They also have a tendency to break apart or break away from the preconceived identity of being somebody's son or daughter. And one of the ways that they express that is to keep themselves away from the parents. The process of separation from parents is a natural one. Erik Erikson was the first major psychologist theorist to develop the notion of the adolescent's identity crisis. In his view, all of the earlier crystallizations of identity formed during childhood come into question during adolescence with the overwhelming combination of physical changes, increased sex drive, expanded mental abilities, and increasing and conflicting social demands. To develop a sense of identity amidst the confusion, Erikson stated in Identity, one of the most confusing statements that you'll probably read, youth and crisis, that adolescents need to try on a variety of roles and must often test extremes before settling on a considered course. So this is something like Erikson stated that in youth and identity crisis, so it looks like the words are jumbled here, but the idea is simple enough that you have to try different or a variety of roles and try a bit in the extremes also before settling down to a particular course of life. At this stage, adolescents often reject the parents and all that they stand for, so that they can, parents as well as the ideas the parents hold, all that they stand for, so that they can make a clean break from childhood as they attempt to form an identity of their own. They are hungry for role models. This is again another important the growth, let's say, pit stop, where they're looking for someone to model themselves with now, and can be rather indiscriminate about where they find them. And that's again very important and a big reason for, let's say, a lot of conflicts in families, because they find a role model from wherever they find them, and that might not be very much in line with what the community thinks, what the family thinks, etc. And there is a lot of conflicts usually. If the role model is a social influencer or something and smokes 20 cans of cigarette every day, then probably your parents might not approve it. But somehow you like their certain trait and you really want to look like them and walk like them and eat like them, then definitely there'll be a conflict. With the sense of identity influx, teens will often turn into peer groups for that missing sense of belonging. You, as and when you can, you try to tend to identify yourself with a certain cult or things like that. This explains some of the cult-like tendencies among early adolescents to worship the same heroes. So you basically select people with similar interest and you become a member of a group, a cult, and you somehow create a Fox identity for yourself. Wear the same kind of clothes and rebel against traditional authority. I believe this will be probably easy to understand. We all go through this kind of phase.
The rebel phase.
Sorry?
The rebel phase.
Yes, exactly. Rebel phase. So Gina wants to have a tattoo or a navel ring because everyone else is getting them. So there's no particular logical reason or something. They just want it because that's how things are, the way they see it, which again is a natural way of things, and parents will have to deal with it in the most practical way possible. Everyone has certain kind of dress, certain kind of way of living. They want to enact it or they want to follow the same patterns. At this stage of development, usually early teens, role models can make a critical difference in choice of these youngsters. That can actually affect their lives also, because again, your choice of music, your choice of lifestyle, etc., can also matter a lot, particularly in the countries and all, like is more strong in identification. At this age, teens have a strong need for idealize others, especially those who are older and more worldly qualities they desperately want to possess. They can be as early out by elders, guys who drive, you kind of get the idea. So you look for someone to follow or mock, and then you end up doing it. The physical, cognitive, and social changes of adolescence allow the teenager to develop the identity that will serve as a basis for their adult lives. During Erickson's stage of identity versus role confusion, adolescents' description of self expands to include personality traits like I am outgoing or I'm an introvert or whatever, and attitudes. I don't like stuck up people. Good examples. The emergence of abstract reasoning abilities allows adolescents to think about the future and experiment with different identities. Identity development involves two steps, important. Two steps. First, adolescent must break away from childhood beliefs to explore alternative for identity in a particular area. Second, adolescent makes a commitment as to the individual identity in that area. So they kind of try different options, finally focus down to a particular area, then they make a commitment to grow in that area. Some aspect of identity, especially among young adolescents, may be foreclosed. This is an important word. The foreclosure status is when a commitment is made without exploring alternatives. So you are told to be so, and you turn out to be so, without trying different options that you might have. Identity achievement during adolescence serves as a basis for our adult expectations and goals for us. As individuals enter early adulthood, they use the current understanding of whom they are to develop a lifespan construct. This again is an important idea. They in the continuum that we spoke about early, what they already experienced, or the kind of things that are going on at this point, and where they want to be in life. With that, they make kind of a lifespan construct, which serves as the link between the identity developed in adolescence and adult self. The lifespan construct is an integration of individuals' past, present, and future. Now, identity crisis. This again can be a question, and then there is an addition with Marcia about the same identity crisis. First, it was investigated by Erik Erikson, and Marcia added his own thoughts onto it. Are you unsure of your role in life? Mostly you are. Do you feel like you don't know the real you? Maybe, not sure. If you answer yes to previous questions, you may be experiencing an identity crisis. Theorist Erik Erikson coined the word identity crisis and believed that it was one of the most important conflicts people face in development. And identity crisis is a term in an epigenetic and social psychological theory in which an individual loses a sense of personal sameness and historical continuity. You remember the last discussion we had? I was talking about a continuity and the sameness. So in this, what happens is, let's say a kid was trying to be a football backfield or something, and suddenly one day he finds that he's actually more at home and finds very happiness and everything in, let's say, singing or drawing. And suddenly in 2 weeks, he finds himself in attending all sorts of singing competitions or singing art classes, and the whole I want to be a footballer thing is gone in matter of couple of days or weeks. And then suddenly the past, the current ongoing stuff, and future plans as he had as a football player all goes for a toss, and then something else takes over. Now that happens a couple of times, and the person can be absolutely confused, or where he is, where he was, where he wants to go, and that kind of thing is losing this sameness and historical continuity, and that's called identity crisis. The term was coined by Erik Erikson. According to him, the identity crisis is a time-intensive analysis and exploration of different ways of looking at oneself. According to him, again, same thing. Okay, let me move on a little bit. Erikson described identity as a subjective sense as well as observable quality of personal sameness and continuity, paired with some belief in the sameness and continuity of some shared world image. So the sameness and continuity of the self as well as the sameness and continuity of the world. So this kind of a combination of both is seen as the identity, as a quality of unconscious living and self-conscious living. This can be gloriously obvious in a young person who has found himself as he has found his communality. In him, we see emerge a unique unification of what is irreversibly given, that is, body type and temperament, giftedness and vulnerability, infantile models and acquired ideals, with an open choices provided as available roles, occupational possibilities, values offered, mentors met, friends made, and sexual encounters. In Erikson's stage of psychosocial development, the emergence of an identity crisis occurs during the teenage years, in which people struggle between feelings of identity versus role confusion. Researcher Marcia has expanded upon Erikson's initial theory. He argued that identity could be viewed as a structure of beliefs, abilities, and past experiences regarding the self. The better developed this structure is, so he is defining a structure which is a combination of ideas and beliefs and past experience about a person. The better developed that kind of a framework is, the lesser he is confused about what he is or she is. The weaker the structure is, Marcia said, the more chances of identity crisis for a person. And we are going to deal with Marcia again in detail below. James Marcia refined and extended Erickson's work on identity. In his model, it involves three items. One is an adoption of sexual orientation, then a set of values and ideals, and a vocational direction. What kind of a profession you want to get into. So these three will decide the kind of structure that you build for yourself. A well-developed identity gives one a sense of one's strengths, weaknesses, and individual uniqueness. A person with less well-developed identity is not able to define his or her personal strengths and weaknesses, and does not have a well-articulated sense of self. You ask him or her to tell about yourself in an interview, and that goes on for quite a long time. Marcia, in 1966, operationalized the stage of progression theory of identity development proposed by Erickson by identifying four identity statuses: diffusion, foreclosure, moratorium, and achievement. Through use of semi-structured interview, an individual could be assigned an identity status on the basis of evidence of crisis and commitment in the domains of occupation, religion, and politics. It's important that these four items, they are not stages that we go through. Those are the status that a person is currently in. Since its inception, Marcia's interviews has stimulated a wide range of research in the area of identity formation. To better understand the identity formation process, he conducted interviews with young people. He asked whether participants in his study, these are the questions, had established a commitment to an occupation, that's a vocational insight, and ideology. Then, if they have experience or where person experiencing a decision-making period, stage 2. Marcia developed a framework of thinking about identity in terms of four identity statuses. It is important to note that these are not stages, they are just statuses that a person might be in. So we'll go through each of them. One is called a foreclosure. Foreclosure is, well, you're familiar with this. I already spoke about this a little bit. These people have made commitments to an occupational future, like engineer or doctor or whatever, but have not experienced an identity crisis because they have not explored a lot. They have conformed to the expectations of others concerning the future. For example, an individual may be may have allowed a parent to decide what career they want to pursue. These individuals have not explored a range of options. Then there is a diffusion where you may or may not have experienced a identity crisis, in which young person has not made a commitment, is still exploring. He or she appears to have given up any attempt to make commitments needed for developing a clear sense of identity. So he has not made any commitment, he is exploring still. Moratorium. In this status, individual in moratorium are actively exploring alternative commitments, but have not yet made a decision. They are working on it. These guys, they're totally given up. They just want to explore more and more. But these guys are actually really working hard to make a decision on what kind of person they want to be, what kind of profession they want to be in, etc. And finally, well, these moratorium people, they are experiencing an identity crisis, but at least in the crisis, they are moving forward because they're exploring and they are working towards forming an identity for themselves. And the fourth one is achievement, where they have experienced an identity crisis and have made a commitment, they have made a choice necessary for building a sense of identity as described above. So those were the 4 statuses for a person who could be experiencing a identity formation or identity crisis. The core idea is that one's sense of identity is determined largely by the choices and commitments made regarding certain personal and social traits. The work done in this paradigm considers how much one has made certain choices and how much he or she displays commitment to those choices. Identity involves the adoption of one, a sexual orientation, two, a set of values and ideals, and vocational direction. A well-developed identity gives on a sense of one's strengths, weaknesses, and individual uniqueness. A person with less well-developed identity is not able to define his or her personal strengths and weaknesses and does not have a well-articulated sense of self. So those are the main ones I want to cover. I'll just touch upon the social development also. So far, anyone have something to ask or suggest or discuss? Very interesting topic. Nobody have any problem with this?
No, it's all good.
Okay, good. Let's move on then. 3.4. Social development. Now, this is a very small piece. Adolescence is a time when parental influences decreases and peer influences increases. You have your friend circle, you have your cult circle. We already spoke about formation of cult. You like someone ideal, and then you kind of collect a bunch of people like you and you form a group. It's a time when the individual searches for her own identity. This happens by the youngster's interaction with peers and many outsiders, including her teachers, neighborhood adults, and others. Same-sex hero worship is quite common in this period. Also, they are highly swayed by and impressed by the idealisms of heroes and social workers. At this age, they enjoy doing work for others and love to serve the community. They take up examples of great pioneers and try to mold themselves like them. They may also like to imitate film heroes and try to do things like them. All these efforts contribute in a big way to the youngster's self-identity. Adolescence begins with the physical changes that lead to sexual maturity. However, studies in the recent years have shown that puberty is occurring at an earlier age, so also the physical development. Adolescents experience many moods and are more prone to mood swings. The cognitive development that takes place during this time gives adolescents the ability to reason. These advancing reasoning skills allow adolescents to ponder several options and possibilities to many social situations and experiences. They are able to think more logically than definitely when they were younger. They're also able to think hypothetically and even abstractly. If you remember, the abstract reasoning skills, etc., develops in the later part of the fourth stage of Piaget. So that is when these guys take over. Okay, that was it. And then I will hand over the mic to Ritu. And Ritu, you can pick it from here. If you want, I can keep sharing, or if you want, you can share.
Kindly share, Prahash.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so the next concept is self-concept in adolescence. So what is self-concept? Self-concept is nothing but self-evaluation, evaluating yourself. Self-concept encompasses all that you know about yourself. Hey, Prahash. Give me a second. The power went. 1 second. Or can you just start? I'll just be back in a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll be reading because I have not paid attention to this.
Sure, sure.
And the self-concept is an accumulation of knowledge about the self, such as beliefs regarding personality traits, physical characteristics, abilities, values, goals, and roles. In adolescence, the self-concept becomes more abstract, complex, and hierarchically organized into cognitive mental representations of self-schemas, which direct the processing of self-relevant information. Self-concept, the way in which one perceives oneself, can be divided into two categories, such as personal self-concept, that is factors or one's own opinions about oneself, such as I have brown eyes or I'm attractive, that is personal, and also social concepts, one's perception about how one is regarded by others. People think I have a great sense of humor, and self ideals, what or how one would like to be. I want to be a lawyer, or I want to be like my movie star, my favorite movie star. Self concept of
I am back, Prahash.
Also, okay,
Yes,
take
thank
from
you so
here.
much. Yes. So basically, in adolescence, the self concept becomes more abstract, as we have seen that abstractness starts from this period, and more complex and hierarchically organized into cognitive mental representations or self schemas, which direct the processing of self relevant information. Self concept, the way in which one perceives oneself, can be divided into categories. So there are three categories wherein you can divide self concept as. So what the first one is personal self concept. What is it? The way you see yourself, that is personal self concept. The second is social self concept, that is between you and society. You're concerned about how the society is seeing you. So you become too conscious and behave accordingly. You try to be the best possible person ever. The next is self ideals. That is what or how one would like to be. I want to be a lawyer, or I wish I was thinner. The self concept is different from self consciousness, which is an awareness of oneself. Components of the self concept include physical, psychological, and social attributes, which can be influenced by the individual's attitudes, habits, beliefs, and ideas. Self-concept also reflects how an adolescent evaluates himself or herself in domains or areas in which he or she considers important. An adolescent can also have a positive self-concept in some domains and a negative self-concept in others. Suppose a person looks really attractive. So you might think, okay, you look attractive, but psychologically you are into depression or anxiety. That is in a negative way. So you might also think, oh my God, I'm so anxious. And whenever there is a turn wherein you have to participate, you lack that thing. So you might be good in some domain, you might not be good in the other domain. Self-concept refers to a student's perception of competence or adequacy in academic or non-academic. That is, be it social, behavioral, and athletic. All these are non-academic, right? And is best represented by a profile of self-perception across domains. So let us see how this self-concept is correlated in different domains or areas. Now, the kind of effect it has on academic achievement. What? Social concept and academic achievement. The self-concept is frequently positively correlated with academic performance, but it appears to be a consequence rather than a cause of high achievement. This is a common assumption that an individual's high academic performance results in their self-concept. So people have misconceptions. It may not be true. Whereas the high academic performance is the result of individual self-concept. Next, self-concept and aggression. How is this correlated? Another popular assumption is that aggressive students have low self-concept and use aggression as a means of raising it. Third, self-concept, depression, and use of illegal substances. Low self-concept is often considered a defining characteristic of depression, but the evidence for this is weak. There is no proper evidence. Similarly, although some evidence suggests that low self-concept may be a weak risk factor for smoking in girls, the relationship between self-concept and the use of alcohol and illegal drugs has little support. Again, this is not related completely. An adolescent's self-concept is dynamic and causality is complex. That is, problems and difficulties can lower self-concept. Problems and difficulties can lower self-concept, but low self-concept can also cause problems, which means there is some correlation. For adolescents, having a high academic self-concept is associated with positive academic performance, and having a high physical self-concept is related to increased physical activity. Now, next, let us see the signs of negative self-concept in adolescents. Problems and difficulties can lower self-concept is what we have learned, and it can also cause problems. And adolescents can have a positive self-concept in some domains and negative self-domains in others we have already seen. Children tend to experience a decline in positive self-concept during their adolescence years because they become too conscious. This decline often begins around age 12 for girls and around 14 for boys. For some, the decline can become severe in early adolescence between ages 14 and 16, before generally recovering in the mid-teen years. Having a negative self-concept during adolescence has been associated with maladaptive behaviors and emotions. So if a person is not behaving appropriately, or he's not emotionally stable, again, that is a sign of negative self-concept. So self-concept does not necessarily mean it is positive. It can also be negative as well. So there are characteristics of a negative self-concept. Those are belief that you're not a worthy person. You feel that you are unworthy. A focus on your limits and lack of potential. So you feel that you are incapable of doing certain tasks, or, sometimes some of your friends participate in sports and you maybe are a little obese and you might think that you are incapable, which may not be true. It is just in your mind. So that is negative self-concept. Emphasis on your weakness. So everybody has got positives and negatives, strengths and weaknesses. So the person who is, negative in self-concept is always focused on the weaknesses rather than the positive sides. Formation of a negative picture of yourself. So always, whenever you represent yourself, you always represent that you are a weak person. Failure to explore options and to make wise decisions. So whenever you have to expose yourself, whenever there is some opportunity, what do? You do not explore. You feel that you're timid and you do not participate. And then that results into many more things. So negative self-concept. Because negative self-concept in adolescence has been associated with various maladaptive behavioral and emotional problems. It is important to address signs of negative self-concept in youth, very important. Due to this, it is important to assess the various domains that make up self-concept, especially for adolescent at risk. And there are several signs which indicate that an adolescent has a negative self-concept. So how do you identify like symptoms of a negative self-concept person? So somebody who is performing poor in school, which is again consistently, like it is constantly he's doing bad in school. Having few friends, he doesn't want to gel up with other people. Maybe he has got only one person as a friend, or just two, or just a couple of them. So he doesn't want to come out of that comfort zone and explore. Putting down oneself and others. He's always putting down himself or sometimes others. Why? Why do you put down others? Because you are an insecure person. Rejecting compliments. So somebody compliments you, say, hey, you look so pretty. That person doesn't believe that the other person would just be like, okay. Teasing others, showing excessive amounts of anger. So you just show a lot of anger, being excessively jealous, appearing conceited, hesitating to try new things because you don't want to come out of your comfort zone. So strategies that can be used to improve an adolescent's self-concept include providing praise for accomplishment. So how how do you, help these people cope up, and come out of the situation? That is by praising their accomplishment, right? Rewarding their good behavior or accomplishment, praising their effort. Somebody puts an effort, you'll be like, hey, you did really well, you performed well. Working with the individual to encourage improvement in areas where he or she feels deficient. So somebody is weak at something, the teacher or the parent can just work along with them. Okay, fine, the child is weak in this, okay, let me work along with the child. So that actually motivates the child. And refraining from using negative feedback. So whenever the teacher is providing a feedback or the parent is providing feedback, they should be very choosy on picking up the words, because any negative word, because in adolescence you don't focus on the intent of the other person, your focus is only on the words. Okay, this person said this to me. So it is very important that the teacher chooses the right words as feedback. Next is self-esteem. What is self-esteem? It is a measure of how much you value, respect, and feel confident about yourself, not others. That is self-esteem. Self-esteem is the one important factor required by anybody to succeed in life. It is a well-proven concept that if one can build self-esteem at adolescence period, it will last all through your life. Adolescence is one period in which boys and girls faces with a lot of problems and issues. It is necessary that adolescents' self-esteem to be at top to face the problems faced with adolescence period. So you should not have a negative self-esteem during adolescence period that could again impact in a negative way throughout the life. Many teenagers will have low self-esteem, and it is imperative to know major reasons for low self-esteem and find out ways and means to fight or combat the low self-esteem. There are many causes for the lack of self-esteem, so let us have a look one by one. So why a person has low self-esteem or he lacks self-esteem? So let's just see the reasons. So first is hereditary. What is hereditary? Again, it is from the parent. So this is also one of the main factors. If the parents are introverts and they never mingle with people because they are fearful, they feel they are, not able to do it, the chances that children have low self-esteem are more, because basically a child is moreover a reflection of the parents. The living conditions. Now, what is living conditions here? The surrounding in which you live also affects the lack of self-esteem. If the child is brought up in a poor environment without giving proper attention to excel in fields and deprived of doing good activities, obviously, if you are, when you see your classmates and they belong to a nice family wherein their parents can afford to give everything to them and you cannot afford, your parents cannot afford. So that also leads to low self-esteem in the child, even though he's excellent. But again, it leads to low self-esteem, lack of proper education. Again, this is a major factor which affects self-esteem. So, there are some children who are educated, there are some children who are uneducated. So whenever an uneducated child sees an educated child or a school going child, they feel that, they do not have any self-esteem because they cannot afford. Again, that is a reason for poverty as well. Physiological. What is physiological now? Adolescence is a period when major physical changes occur in boys and girls. The gender hormones start the functioning in full swing during this period. Many children face problems during this change, unable to cope with the changes occurring in their body and behavior. The physiological is basically related to the body. Suppose somebody is obese, like I told you, if they are taking part in dance or any other curricular activities where you need a physically fit child. Now, it is not necessary that a person who is thin is physically fit, but the child who is obese, he thinks that he is not physically fit. So he himself declares himself to be physically unfit and ends up in low self-esteem. Societal implications. During the adolescent stage of a child, society put many restrictions in their behaviors and attitudes. Girls will be automatically tempted to move away from the boys, and boys are restricted to mingle with girls during the period. This makes them feel
Someone needs to go on mute, please.
the societal implications. What is societal implications? Now, it is not the implication only from yourself, your parents, or your, teachers. It is also again from the society. So society also puts a lot of pressure, that boys should be separate, girls should be separate, and they shouldn't talk to each other. Girls shouldn't mingle with the boys, and a lot of things. And when you actually have to face each other in future, you tend to have that low self-esteem. Suppose all your life you have studied only in girls school, girls college, or boys school, boys college, but in future suppose you have to do masters or something and you end up in a co-ed education society. What happens then? Sometimes it's like it is overwhelming for you, but then again you don't know how to talk, you don't know how to deal with the other gender because you have never been with them. Maybe you have just been with your sibling, but sibling and other people is different. So again, that also leads to low self-esteem. Fear about future. During the late periods of adolescence, the children will seriously think about the future, and in many cases, they will get depressed of their future. So, like you see, something does not exist, but in adolescence, children represent themselves. They have a representation of themselves, mostly negative again. So, unemployment, dating problems, insecurity, lack of financial background, and many such factors that make the adolescence period of facing the world. Next is diseases and other physical ailments. Individuals may consider themselves to be a burden on society and consequently keep away from others and develop tendency to become agitated. So due to certain diseases, if a person has got disease, he cannot run, there is some issue with him, he's got some issue, then he also feels, now you see, we have got this education system wherein a differently abled child can also attend a normal school, right? So the differently abled child also sees himself, of course, he is a differently abled child. So he also has a lack of self-esteem or no self-esteem at all due to his physical ailments. And there are many such reasons for low self-esteem of adolescents. If proper care is not given, then low self-esteem gradually will lead to many physical as well as mental ailments. Next is self-concept versus self-esteem. So we have just touched upon the meaning of self-concept and self-esteem. Let us just learn a little in detail. So self-concept is the description of a person, that is, I am a student, right? Self-concept, that is concept of yourself. I am a student. Whereas self-esteem is how the person feels or thinks about those descriptions. Example, I am a good student. So self-concept is I am a student. Self-esteem is I am a good student or a bad student. Okay, so let us just see the difference. Self-concept. Your self-concept or self-image is the sum total of all the knowledge and information you have about yourself. So it is basic knowledge of yourself that you have about yourself. Now, what is self-esteem? Your self-esteem is whether you think all these things add up to something good, bad, worthy, or unworthy. It's how you rate what you know about yourself, like rate yourself between 1 to 5 in physical aspects. So how do you rate? So that rating is nothing but self-esteem. The way we rate these McDonald's and, through Zomato, Swiggy's and everything. Yeah. Then self-concept also refers to domain-specific evaluations on the self, like it could be physical, psychological. Then what is self-esteem? It is a global evaluative dimension. It is not just one or two domains. It is a global evaluative dimension that is a comprehensive of the self, also referred to as self-worth or self-image. Now, what is self-concept? It is a cognitive appraisal of our social, physical, and academic competence. So basically, it is to do with the cognitive aspect or academics. Now, what is self-esteem? It is the affective or emotional reaction to one's self-concept. So you have a self-concept. It is the way you react. Now, next is, what is self-concept? It is informative in nature. That is, it is knowledge about yourself. Information is nothing but knowledge. What is self-esteem? Self-esteem leads to evaluation. So the way you evaluate yourself by rating yourself. And it could be again positive and negative. Now let us move to the last concept, that is egocentrism in adolescence. What is egocentrism? I, me, or myself, that's ego. So egocentrism is self-focused. I am the best. Adolescents develop a special kind of egocentrism, which is true. Adolescent egocentrism is a tendency of adolescents to perceive the world and themselves from their own perspectives. So they, even if the parents are trying to guide them, even if the teachers are trying to guide them of the world, they may or may not take it because they have their own way of perceiving or understanding the world. They don't need your approval. They don't need any validation from you. Basically, it is a tendency for teenagers to focus on themselves and what others think of themselves, of them. It is concerned with abstract thoughts and patterns. So what they think of themselves is very important. They don't care what you think. As a parent, they don't care what you think of them. And what the world thinks of them is also very important to them. Adolescents typically think others are more aware and attentive of their behavior and appearance than people actually are. So adolescents and anybody, suppose it is me, so I am always conscious thinking, oh, okay, so today let me, dress up this thing. It'll look very beautiful. Everybody's observing me. Oh my God, I should dress up like this. So I am always thinking that the other person is seeing me. If the other person is seeing or not, that's a second question. But then that's what I perceive, that everybody's focused on me. The entire world revolves around me in some or the other manner. So I am the best. That is what is egocentrism in adolescence. Now, adolescence egocentrism is made up of 3 patterns of thought. So what are the kind of thoughts these kids have? First is the imaginary audience. So there is no reality. They most of the time live in their imaginary world, representation of themselves or anybody else. Preoccupation with the reaction of others. So, and next is fail to differentiate between how they feel about themselves and how others feel about them. And it is essentially a mentally constructed anticipation of an event or situation in a future social setting. So something may or may not happen, but they are obviously, future astrologers, maybe. That's how they behave. They try to predict everything, to predict all the events that is going to happen, which may or may not happen. In their imagination, again, they act as though they are performing for an imaginary audience. So they live in their own world. The next is personal fable. Again, they live in their own world, which is comprised of adolescent beliefs and their feelings. It is not based on the facts. It is what they believe, which they, think, which is true. And their feelings are unique and uncommon, that, oh my God, nobody is like me. They are profound and special, and no one can feel the same way that they do. Example, destined for great fame and fortune. So they have all these building blocks, which they make in their mind. The next is mythological fable, that nothing serious or catastrophic will ever happen to them, only happen to others. So nothing can happen. I am all fine. Example, never get seriously ill or die. So yeah, they also might think that they're never going to die. They have some, God gift or something. So all this is in imagination. Yes, that's it for the day. Should we summarize?
That would be nice.
Yeah. So what is adolescence? Basically, it involves exploration and testing all your ideas, beliefs, behaviors, and dramatic. And it is also a dramatic change and uncertainty in your life. The process of separation from parents is a natural one during adolescence. According to Erikson, an identity crisis is a time of intensive analysis and exploration of different ways of looking at oneself. Erikson's interest in identity began in childhood. Erikson described identity as a subjective sense as well as an observable quality of personal sameness and continuity, paired with some belief in the sameness and continuity of some shared world image. And Marcia operationalized the stage progression theory of identity development proposed by Erikson by identifying 4 identity statuses, that is diffusion, foreclosure, moratorium, and achievement. Now, what is foreclosure? That is, people made commitments about their future who have not even experienced identity crisis. That is foreclosure. For example, an individual has left their career choice to their parents. So they have never even experienced the commitment, right? Because they have left the career choice to their parents. Next is diffusion. What is diffusion? Person is not committed and he or she has not faced any identity crisis because they are not even committed or experienced. For example, parents and child discuss. So basically, they have not made any pre-commitment. They have not even decided anything. Next is moratorium. What is moratorium? So having an alternative choice by exploring different commitments. So choices, opportunities, they all decide based on what strengths, what weaknesses they have, and they choose based on that. Next is achievement. What is it? They have experience in identity crisis and still made commitment to achieve and build the identity and will be successful. Suppose they are really, really passionate and they know what they really want to become. They want to take all the risk and they do succeed in life. Next is self-concept. What is self-concept? It is the accumulation of knowledge about the self, such as beliefs, our personality traits, physical characteristics, abilities, values, goals, and roles. Next is what is self-esteem? It is personal worth. It is one of the most important factor required by anybody to succeed in life. It is a well-proven concept that if you can build self-esteem at your adolescence period, it will last all through your life. So it is very important. Next is egocentrism. Egocentrism is I, me, myself. So basically the world revolves around me. Adolescence is one period in which boys and girls faces with many problems and issues and challenges. And also it is necessary that adolescents' self-esteem to be at top to face the problems faced with adolescence period. So here, self-esteem or self-concept plays a vital role. Many teenagers will have low self-esteem and it is imperative to know major reasons for low self-esteem and find out ways. So if somebody has low self-esteem or no self-esteem at all, then it is very important that they fight with it and parents and teachers together can help and even friends can help fight that and come out of the situation. It is highly advisable to make dedicated efforts to bring up the self-esteem. That's it. Done.
Thank you, Ritu. I'm just finding. Oh, yeah.
Thank you.